The Galactic Combat Academy was not a place for the weak. It was built at the edge of the Orion cluster, where young warriors from hundreds of planets came to train. Every race sent their strongest to prove their worth. Some had claws that could crush metal, others had hides that could resist fire, some could see in the dark for miles. When the transport ship arrived carrying the new recruits, the hangar filled with noise. Metal boots struck the floor, engines roared, and the air smelled of oil and ozone. The large alien cadets looked around proudly, ready to show their power. But then, a single small figure stepped out from the back of the line. He was human. His name was Rian. He looked different from everyone else. His skin was smooth, his build was light, and his eyes seemed to calm for a place like this. Around him stood beings twice his height and 3 times his weight. Many of them looked down and grinned. A few whispered jokes to each other. "Is that really a warrior from Terra?" One of the reptilian cadets said with a rough laugh, "He looks like a child." Another alien, a tall stone-skinned creature with glowing eyes, joined in. "Maybe he came here to watch, not to fight." Rian did not answer. He simply looked around, observing everything. The walls were marked with the banners of different worlds, each showing strength and honor. He felt small among them, but not afraid. He took a slow breath and stepped forward. The commander of the recruits. A large insectoid officer named Curvin read the list of names. When he reached Rian of Terra, his voice slowed for a moment. His eyes moved from the paper to the young human. "You are from the world called Earth," Curvin said in a clicking tone. "We do not receive many from there. I hope your spirit is stronger than your body." "Yes, sir," Rian replied. His tone was calm, respectful, and steady. The commander gave a short nod. "We shall see." Training began the next day. The new recruits were sent to the combat field, a massive arena filled with sand, barriers, and robotic training drones. The morning sun of the planet burned bright through the glass dome above. Rian stood at one corner, checking his simple combat gear. His armor was lighter than the others because the academy could not fit the heavy standard armor on his smaller frame. Some cadets laughed when they saw him putting it on. "Look at that," said Drex, a wide-shouldered alien from the world of Vorin. They gave him child armor. Maybe he can use it as a toy when he loses. Rian said nothing. He tied his wrist guard carefully and waited for the signal. When the horn sounded, the recruits charged. Each had to face one of the drones in single combat. The drones were fast, strong, programmed to fight like real predators. Rian's drone attacked quickly, slashing through the air with metal claws. He ducked under the strike, rolled to the side, and countered with a short baton. The hit was not strong enough to damage the drone, but it made the machine adjust its stance. He learned from its movement and waited for another chance. The watching recruits laughed again. "He cannot even scratch it," someone shouted. But Rian stayed focused. He moved like water, never staying in one place. When the drone attacked again, he stepped close, grabbed a loose wire under its arm, and pulled hard. Sparks flew. The drone froze for half a second. That was all he needed. He slammed the baton into the exposed joint. The drone fell, its systems flickering. Silence filled the arena. Rian stood still, breathing heavily. He had a cut on his arm, but his eyes were steady. The instructor raised a metallic hand. "Round complete. Human, step back." When Rian returned to the line, he noticed a pair of golden eyes watching him from the higher platform. It was Vorak, the apex hunter from the world of Tazek. He was a legend across the galaxy. His kind were known for hunting the most dangerous beasts in existence. Few dared to look him in the eye. Vorak said nothing, but his gaze lingered on Rian longer than anyone else's. That night, when the recruits gathered in the mess hall, the talk of the day was the small human who had beaten his drone. Some still laughed, calling it luck. Others looked at him with quiet respect, though they did not admit it. Rian sat alone, eating slowly. His hands shook slightly from exhaustion. A shadow fell across the table. He looked up and saw a tall alien named Lorne, who had been one of the loudest mockers earlier. "You think that one win means anything?" Lorne said, leaning close. "Tomorrow, we will have a real trial. You will not last a minute." Rian met his eyes calmly. "Then I will try again," he said softly. Lorne stared at him for a moment and then walked away, his tail flicking behind him in annoyance. The next morning brought the second stage of training. This time it was group combat. Each team had to capture a beacon at the center of the arena while fighting off other teams. It tested strategy and coordination. Rian was placed in a team with 3 other recruits, none of whom wanted him there. "Stay behind," said Drex. "Do not slow us down." He nodded quietly. When the battle started, chaos filled the field. Energy bolts flashed, smoke rose, and roars echoed. The larger recruits rushed forward, but they moved without plan. The enemy team ambushed them easily. Within minutes, Drex was pinned under a barrier, and the others scattered. Rian crawled to cover and watched the pattern of the enemy's movement. He saw that they left one path open to the beacon, but it was narrow and full of traps. He grabbed a fallen energy shield and crawled through the dust. When a trap triggered, he used the shield to block the blast. Step by step, he reached the beacon. His arm burned from another cut, but he pressed the activation button. A loud chime rang across the field. His team's color lit up on the scoreboard. When the smoke cleared, everyone stared at the board in disbelief. The smallest recruit had completed the mission alone. After the match, Rian helped Drex stand up. The large alien looked confused. "Why did you come back for me? Because we are on the same team?" Rian said simply. That night, the laughter in the mess hall was quieter. Some recruits avoided his eyes, while others watched him with new curiosity. From the observation deck, Vorak stood beside Commander Curvin. The Apex Hunter's voice was low but firm. "The Terran is different. He does not fight for pride. He fights because he must." Curvin gave a slow nod. "He will not last long against the next challenge. The physical test is tomorrow." Vorak's golden eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. Or perhaps the others will learn what true endurance means." The following day, the recruits were taken to the mountain range outside the academy. The air was thin and the ground was rough. Each warrior had to carry a heavy pack filled with supplies and reach the top before sunset. It was not only a race of speed, but of survival. Many laughed again when they saw Rian struggling to lift his pack. His legs trembled under the weight, but he began walking, one step at a time. Hours passed. Some of the larger cadets moved fast at first but grew tired halfway up the mountain. The heat drained their energy, and their heavy bodies slowed. Rian kept walking, resting only for a few seconds at a time. When night came, the first to reach the top was not one of the giants. It was the small Terran. His body was shaking from exhaustion, his hands blistered, but his eyes were bright. Vorak was waiting there. He looked down at the human and gave a short nod. "You did not stop." Rian's voice was weak but steady. "I could not stop. If I stop, I lose." The Apex Hunter studied him for a moment. "You remind me of the hunters of my clan," he said. "They were never the biggest, but they always finished the hunt." Rian did not understand the meaning of those words yet, but he felt a strange respect in Vorak's tone. When the rest of the recruits finally arrived, many fell to the ground, too tired to move. They looked at Rian with disbelief. The one they had called weak was standing tall while they struggled to breathe. That night, the academy was quiet. Even the laughter had stopped. The story of the small Terran had spread through the halls. Some still mocked him behind his back, but their voices carried less weight now. In his small bunk room, Rian cleaned the cuts on his arms. He thought of home, of the blue skies of Earth, and of his people who had always survived by adapting. He smiled slightly, not out of pride, but out of determination. Far above, in the observation room, Vorak watched the footage again. Each time he saw Rian move, he saw the same thing: the will to continue no matter the cost. He turned to the commander. "When the final trials come," Vorak said, "I want him on my team." Gervin frowned. "You would hunt beside a human?" Vorak's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "I would hunt beside a warrior." And so, the small Terran's journey continued. The laughter that once filled the halls of the academy began to fade, replaced by something new: curiosity, respect, and the first quiet signs of honor? Rion did not know it yet. But he had caught the attention of the most feared hunter in the galaxy, and soon that bond would change everything. Days passed at the Galactic Combat Academy, and Rion's name began to spread. Some called him lucky. Others said he was clever, but none could deny that the small Terran had done what no one expected. He had earned the silent respect of the apex hunter Vorak of Tazik. The academy did not slow down. Each new day brought a harder trial. The recruits trained from sunrise to nightfall. They climbed walls under high gravity, fought combat drones with live blades, and ran across fields filled with traps. The weak were dismissed quickly. Only the strongest and most disciplined remained. Rion was never the fastest, never the strongest, but he was always the last to give up. When the others collapsed from fatigue, he stayed on his feet. When they complained about pain, he focused on his breathing and pushed forward. The instructors began to notice. Commander Curvin, who had once doubted him, watched the human's progress on his datapad. "He has no natural advantage," Curvin said one evening to Vorak. "Yet he keeps improving." "What drives him?" Vorak's golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Humans are hunters of persistence. They chase their prey until it collapses. This one is the same. His body is weak, but his will is strong." The next morning, the Academy gathered in the main hall for a new announcement. It was time for the tactical simulation trials, a test of leadership and survival. Teams would face a virtual battlefield filled with dangers. Each recruit would be graded on strategy, decision-making, and courage. The recruits buzzed with energy. Many wanted to be team captains, but few expected Rion to be chosen. When the screen displayed his name as one of the leaders, the hall went silent. Then the laughter began again. "How can the smallest one lead a squad?" Drex said with disbelief. "He will get them all eliminated." Rion ignored the laughter. He stood quietly as the list of his team members appeared. Lorne, Drex, and two others who had mocked him before were assigned to his command. It was almost like a test made to break him. When they gathered in the preparation chamber, the tension was clear. Drex crossed his arms and looked down at him. "Listen, Terran. You can give orders if you want, but we will do what we think is right." Rion looked at him calmly. "If we do not work together, we will fail. You can be stronger than me, but you cannot win alone." None answered him, but they followed as the simulation began. The lights dimmed, and the holographic field surrounded them. The floor became a battlefield covered with burning wrecks and metal debris. Enemy drones appeared at a distance. Each one moved with deadly precision. Rion studied the map on his wrist display. "We move through the canyon," he said. "The high ground is too exposed." Drex snorted. "That path is longer. We will lose time." Rion did not argue. He just started walking. After a short pause, the others followed. As they entered the canyon, the air shimmered with energy traps. One of the recruits stepped too far and triggered an explosion. The team fell to the ground, stunned by the blast. Rion got up first. He checked the wounded and guided them behind a rock wall. He used the fragments of broken metal to mark safe paths. When the enemy drones approached, he used a mirror fragment to reflect their sensors and mislead them. Slowly, they reached the center of the field where the main objective beacon waited. The team had lost time, but they were still alive. "Cover me," Rion said. "I will activate the beacon." As he moved forward, more drones appeared. Drex fired wildly but missed. Rion's quick eyes spotted a control tower nearby. He sprinted toward it, dodging blasts that scorched the ground. He climbed the structure, reached the console, and shut down the drone control link. The machines froze, mid-attack. The mission timer stopped. The loud voice of the instructor echoed through the speakers. "Simulation complete. Team leader Rion of Terra score 18.9%. When the lights returned to normal, his team looked around in silence. Drex finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "You saved us." Rion shook his head. "We saved each other." Vorak had watched the entire simulation from the upper deck. His claws tapped the rail slowly. He turned to Curvin. "You see it now. He does not lead through fear. He leads through example. That evening, Vorak went to the training ground where Rion was practicing alone. The apex hunter's shadow covered him. Rion stopped and turned, standing straight. "You fight differently from the others," Vorak said. "Where did you learn it?" Rion wiped sweat from his face. "On Earth, we learn to survive with what we have. Sometimes that means thinking faster, instead of hitting harder." Vorak nodded slightly. "A hunter's strength is not in his claws, but in his patience. You have that." From that day forward, Vorak began to train him personally. Their sessions were harsh and quiet. The apex hunter rarely spoke, but his presence alone was like a storm. He taught Rion how to read movement, how to feel the rhythm of combat, how to predict the moment of attack before it came. At first, Rion struggled. He could not match Vorak's speed or power. He was thrown to the ground again and again. But every time he fell, he stood up. His body bruised, his breath ragged, yet his eyes never lost focus. One evening, after another long session, Vorak stopped and looked at him. "Why do you not give up? You have nothing to prove to them." Rion took a slow breath. "Because giving up means I am done learning. I came here to grow, not to be better than others. If I stop now, I lose my purpose." Vorak was silent for a moment. Then he gave a deep, rumbling sound that might have been approval. "Then keep going, Terran. The galaxy respects those who never stop." As weeks passed, the change in Rion became clear. His movements grew sharper, his timing more precise. The other recruits noticed. Some began asking him for help during drills. The laughter that once filled the hall had turned into curiosity. One day, a group of cadets challenged him to a sparring match. Not out of mockery, but to see how far he had come. The arena was crowded. Rion faced two opponents at once. The match began, and he moved like lightning, dodging blows and countering with clean strikes. He used his smaller size to slip between their defenses, landing calculated hits that earned the crowd's cheers. When the match ended, both opponents saluted him respectfully. The spectators clapped, something rare in the academy. From the upper stands, Vorak watched with quiet satisfaction. "He learns faster than I expected," he said to Commander Curvin. "Perhaps too fast," Curvin replied. Some of the older recruits do not like his rise. Vorak's eyes glinted. "Let them test him. The hunt for respect is never easy." That night, while Rion rested in the dormitory, two senior recruits entered. They had been at the academy for years and believed no human should outshine them. They challenged him to a private test in the outer training zone. When Rion arrived, the wind blew dust across the open field. The seniors smirked. "You think you are special because the apex hunter trains you. Show us your real strength." They attacked without warning. Rion dodged the first blow, then the second. He did not fight to harm them, but to stay standing. He blocked, turned, and used their own momentum against them. After several minutes, both fell to the ground, panting. Before the argument could continue, Vorak appeared at the edge of the field. His golden eyes burned like suns. "Enough," he said. "If you fight without honor, you are not worthy of the hunt." The seniors lowered their heads in shame. Vorak turned to Rion. "You had a chance to strike them down. Why did you not take it?" Rion's answer was simple. "Because winning by hate is still losing." Vorak gave a slow nod. "Good, you understand." From that night, no one dared to challenge Rion unfairly again. The respect he earned was no longer forced, but real. Months passed. Under Vorak's training, Rion's body grew stronger. His reflexes sharpened, and his mind became more tactical. He learned to use every detail of his surroundings. He could read the wind, sense the shift in air pressure, and anticipate attacks before they came. The academy began to prepare for the apex hunt, the most difficult test of all. Every recruit who passed it would graduate as a full warrior. The simulation was dangerous, realistic, designed to break even the strongest. As Rion stood in the training yard watching the sunset, Vorak walked beside him. "The hunt will begin soon," the apex hunter said. "Many will fall. But I believe you will endure." Rion looked up at him. "I will do my best, sir." Vorak placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not fight to be better than others. Fight to protect what stands beside you." That is the way of the hunt, Rian nodded. His journey had started with laughter and doubt, but now he stood under the shadow of a legend who saw him not as a weak human, but as a warrior in the making. When the sun set beyond the academy towers, its golden light reflected in both their eyes. The small Terran, who had once been the subject of jokes, was now walking the same path as the apex hunter himself. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the bond between them would soon shape the future of many worlds. The time had come for the final test of the Galactic Combat Academy. Every recruit knew this was the moment that would decide their future. It was called the Apex Hunt, a simulation designed to test everything a warrior had learned. It was not about size or strength alone. It was about courage, teamwork, and survival. The entire academy gathered in the main hall. The instructors stood tall, their uniforms shining under the white lights. Commander Curvin spoke with a voice that carried through the hall. This is the last trial. Those who succeed will earn the title of combat graduate. Those who fail will return home to train again. The hunt will begin at sunrise. The recruits listened quietly. Some looked nervous. Others looked eager for the challenge. Rian stood among them, calm and focused. He had trained harder than anyone, and now it was time to prove himself. When the teams were announced, Rian found himself placed with Drex, Lorne, and two other recruits named Mira and Olin. The five of them would work together to survive the hunt. Their faces showed mixed emotions. They remembered how Rian had once been the weakest among them. But they also knew that he had earned Vorak's respect. That night before the test, Vorak met Rian at the training field. The apex hunter stood under the dim lights, his tall frame casting a long shadow. The apex hunt is not a game, Vorak said. The simulation is built to act like a real world. You will face storms, traps, and predators. Some will not hold back. Do not rely only on strength. Use your mind and your heart. I understand, sir. Vorak placed his hand on Rian's shoulder. Remember what I taught you. The true hunter protects others before himself. When morning came, the teams gathered at the launch zone. The simulation pods stood in a large circle. Each pod would project the team into a shared virtual world, so realistic that even the air would feel real. The recruits stepped into their pods, and the countdown began. When the light flashed, the world around Rian changed. He found himself standing in a dense jungle. The air was thick with mist and strange sounds echoed through the trees. The sky was dark green and huge shapes moved in the shadows. The voice of the instructor echoed in their helmets. Your mission is simple. Find and activate the 3 beacons placed across the jungle. Survive until extraction. Rian turned to his team. Stay close. Do not waste energy fighting everything that moves. We save our strength for the real threats. Drex looked uneasy. What if the predators find us first, then we move smarter than them, Rian said. Not faster, smarter. They began their journey through the jungle. The ground was wet and covered with vines. Strange glowing insects flew past them. The trees were taller than any building Rian had ever seen. As they moved, he marked the path with small energy pings on his wrist device so they would not get lost. The first few hours went smoothly. They found the first beacon at the edge of a lake guarded by a group of automated hunter drones. The machines had metal hides and sharp claws that reflected the dim light. Rian studied them from behind a rock. They are reacting to movement. Stay low. Move only when their sensors turn away. The team followed his orders carefully. One by one, they crawled across the open ground. When a drone turned, they froze. It took time, but they reached the beacon. Rian used a small pulse device to disable the nearest drone, and Drex crushed it with his strength. The others activated the beacon, and a bright signal shot into the sky. One down, Mira said with relief. Rian smiled slightly. 2 more to go. They moved deeper into the forest. The air grew colder. The sounds of animals faded, replaced by a strange humming noise. Rian stopped and held up a hand. Something is wrong. Stay alert. Before anyone could answer, a giant shape burst from the fog. It was one of the simulation's apex predators, built from a mix of real DNA and machine parts. Its body looked like a metallic wolf with 6 legs and red eyes. It roared and charged toward them. The team scattered. Rian rolled behind a tree, while Drex fired his plasma rifle. The blasts hit the creature, but it barely slowed. It swung its massive tail, knocking Lorne to the ground. Rian saw the creature's movement and shouted, "Aim for the joints. The armor is weakest there." He ran forward, grabbed a fallen spear from the ground, and threw it with all his strength. The spear hit one of the creature's legs, making it stumble. Drex took the chance to fire again, this time hitting the exposed joint. The predator roared and fell to the ground. When the dust settled, the team regrouped. Lorne had a cut on his arm, but he was alive. Rian helped him stand. "We move before more come." They continued their journey until they reached the second beacon inside a ruined temple. The walls were covered with glowing symbols. The beacon stood in the center, surrounded by traps. Rian studied the pattern of the floor tiles. Step only on the darker stones. The lighter ones are pressure triggers. They moved carefully, but halfway through, Olan stepped too far and triggered a beam trap. A blast of energy shot across the room. Rian jumped forward and pulled him down just in time. The blast missed them by inches. "Be careful," Rian said. "The temple is watching us." Patience and focus, they reached the beacon and activated it. The second light shot into the sky. The simulation's environment shifted. The ground shook as if something massive had awakened. Then the voice of the instructor sounded again, this time with a warning. "System instability detected. The simulation may not respond to safety controls. Continue with caution." Rian's eyes widened. What does that mean? It meant that the simulation had malfunctioned. The predators and traps would no longer stop at the safety limit. They would attack as if the recruits were in a real battle. Rian looked at his team. "We finish the mission and get out. Stay close to me." The third beacon was deep in the mountain valley. The team moved faster now. They could hear strange metallic growls following them. When they reached the valley, a group of predators was waiting. There were 3 of them, larger than the one they had fought before. Drex raised his weapon. "We cannot fight all of them. Do not fight them head-on," Rian said. "We make them fight each other." He picked up a signal beacon from his belt and threw it into the middle of the predators. The creatures turned toward the noise, confused. At the same time, Rian used his device to project false heat signatures in 3 directions. The predators roared and began attacking the decoys. "Move now," Rian shouted. The team ran through the chaos and reached the third beacon. Mira started the activation process while Rian and Drex covered her. One of the predators turned and leaped toward them. Rian grabbed a pulse grenade, threw it at its mouth, and dived away. The explosion tore through the air. The predator crashed into the rocks. When the beacon activated, the sky lit up with 3 bright beams. The mission was complete. The extraction ship appeared above them, its engines humming. But before they could reach it, one last predator appeared from the shadows. It was larger than all the others, covered in black armor. Its red eyes glowed like fire. It lunged at Rian. He jumped aside, grabbed his plasma blade, and struck its neck. The blade cut deep, but the creature kept fighting. It threw him to the ground. Drex and Lorne tried to pull it away, but it was too strong. Rian saw a glowing core at the center of its chest. He crawled toward it, grabbed a broken metal rod, and drove it into the core with all his strength. The predator roared once and collapsed. Rian fell to his knees, gasping for breath. His armor was cracked, and his arm was bleeding, but he was alive. The rest of the team surrounded him, silent in shock. When they were finally extracted, the simulation pods opened. The instructors rushed to check their vitals. Commander Curvan looked at the data screen in disbelief. They completed all objectives under a system failure. No casualties. Vorak walked forward and looked at Rian. The young human stood weakly, but proudly. "You led them through the storm," Vorak said. "You protected your pack? That is the mark of a true hunter." The hall filled with quiet respect. No one laughed anymore. The smallest recruit had led his team through the most dangerous trial and saved them all. That night, as the academy lights dimmed, Rian stood outside the dormitory, looking up at the stars. The wind was cool against his face. He thought of Earth, of his journey, and of the strange bond he now shared with Vorak. He knew that the road ahead would still be hard. But he also knew something else. He was no longer just a small Terran in a world of giants. He was a warrior, and the Apex Hunter had seen him as one of his own. The Galactic Combat Academy was quiet after the Apex Hunt. The final simulation had ended, and the instructors were reviewing data. Most of the recruits were exhausted, their muscles sore and their minds racing. Few had faced the intensity of the hunt and survived with their entire team. Fewer still had done so with the ingenuity and calm of a Terran. Rian walked through the training halls, his body aching, but his mind alert. He had not stopped thinking even for a moment during the hunt. Each step he took reminded him of the falls he had endured, the attacks he had dodged, and the friends he had protected. He had emerged alive, not by strength alone, but by using every lesson Vorak had taught him. When he reached the observation deck, he saw the Apex Hunter waiting. Vorak's golden eyes followed him as he approached. There was a quiet intensity in those eyes that made Rian stand taller. "You have done well," Vorak said, his voice low and measured. "Not many can survive the hunt without a single team casualty. You did more than survive. You led, you protected, and you overcame every challenge." Rian nodded, feeling a strange mixture of pride and humility. "I only did what I had to, sir." Vorak's eyes narrowed slightly. "You have a quality many lack. You think beyond yourself. That is why I am going to offer something few humans ever receive." Rian looked at him curiously. "What is that?" Vorak stepped closer and placed a clawed hand lightly on his shoulder. "You will train with me. You will learn the ways of the Apex Hunt not as a student, but as my kin. Only those I recognize as true hunters receive this honor." Rian blinked. Recognition as kin was the highest honor in Vorak's culture. It was a bond of trust, respect, and equality. To be called kin of the Apex Hunter meant he was no longer just a small human among giants. He was a warrior of honor, someone the galaxy would remember. I don't know what to say," Rian murmured. Vorak's eyes softened for the first time. "Say nothing. Show your strength through action. That is all that matters." The next days were different from all previous training. Vorak led Rian to isolated terrains, from frozen plains to volcanic craters. Each environment was harsh and unforgiving. Rian had to navigate cliffs with his hands and feet, leap across molten streams, and face predators designed to challenge the most experienced warriors in one session. They faced a simulated pack of apex predators in a desert canyon. The predators were fast, with armored hides and clawed limbs. Most warriors would attack them head-on, relying on brute force. Vorak stopped Rian before he could charge. "Observe," Vorak said. "Do not fight their strength. Use their momentum, their instincts, against them. A true hunter never wastes energy on a fight he cannot win immediately." Rian watched the creatures move. Their attacks were predictable in patterns. He guided them into traps, using loose rocks and narrow pathways. Each predator stumbled over the terrain, slowing down until Vorak moved in with precision to finish them. "You see?" Vorak said after the exercise. "It is not about killing everything you see. It is about surviving, adapting, and protecting those who follow you." Rian nodded, understanding more deeply than ever. He felt the bond forming between himself and the Apex Hunter. It was not just about training. It was about learning a philosophy of life, a way to face impossible odds without fear. Meanwhile, back at the academy, whispers about Rian spread. Other recruits began to notice his growing skill, and even those who had once mocked him could not hide their respect. Drex, Lorne, Myra, and Olin now looked at him not just as a leader in the hunt, but as someone they could trust with their lives. One evening, Rian and Vorak returned from a long trek across a canyon field. They had spent hours tracking a phantom prey, observing, analyzing, and testing each other's instincts. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. Vorak stopped and turned to him. "Look at the sky, Terran. Each color tells a story. A hunter reads the environment before he acts. You must do the same in battle. Read the movement, the wind, the space between threats. Learn to see what others ignore." Rian followed his gaze. The sunset was beautiful, and he realized that the galaxy itself could be a battlefield or a teacher, depending on how one looked at it. After a pause, Vorak placed his forehead against Rian's, following the ancient gesture of his people. It was a moment of recognition, silent oath that Rian would be considered one of his kin. "The small one from Terra has earned it," Vorak murmured. "From this moment, you are no longer alone. You fight as kin, not as a stranger." Rian felt a wave of emotion. All the laughter, the doubt, and the mockery of the Academy seemed far away. He was no longer a small Terran. He was a warrior recognized by one of the most feared hunters in the galaxy. The following weeks were a mix of intense training and preparation for the next stage of Academy duties. Rian learned to track prey across alien worlds, how to anticipate attacks from unseen enemies, and how to lead a team with minimal words. Each lesson from Vorak pushed him further than he thought possible. During one session, Vorak tested Rian's endurance. They were placed in a simulated storm on a high mountain. The wind screamed, ice cut at their skin, and the terrain was treacherous. Most recruits would have struggled just to stay upright, but Rian pressed on. He moved with calculated steps, using his smaller size to slip through dangerous passages that larger warriors could not traverse. When they reached the summit, Vorak looked at him. "Few could endure this. You did. You are ready for the final part of your journey." Rian looked at the horizon. His heart pounded with excitement and determination. He was ready for the challenges that awaited. Back in the academy halls, the other recruits now treated him differently. Some came to seek advice, while others simply observed him with quiet admiration. Rian did not let this change him. He remained focused on the lessons from Vorak and the bond they had formed. One day, Drex approached him. "Rian, I have to admit something. I thought you would never make it. But I see now. You are not like the rest of us. You think faster, act smarter, and care for the team. I want to learn from you." Rian smiled. "Then we will train together. There is always more to learn." Even Mira and Lorne, who had been skeptical at first, joined him. Together, the small Terran and his team began preparing for the challenges that lay beyond the academy walls. As the sun set over the training grounds, Rian stood at the edge of the field, looking toward the stars. He knew that the galaxy was full of dangers and wonders, but he also knew that he had found a path, a purpose, and a mentor who believed in him. The laughter that had once followed him was gone. In its place was respect, recognition, and the first seeds of legend. Rian understood something important. Being small in size did not matter. Being human did not matter. What mattered was the strength of the heart, the will to endure, and the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. Vorak stood beside him, silent but proud. The apex hunter's golden eyes reflected the distant stars. Rian knew that one day he would face challenges beyond the academy, on worlds that none had ever mapped, against enemies that none had ever faced, but he would not face them alone. He had the training, the skill, and the bond of kinship, and that was more powerful than any laughter or doubt the galaxy could throw at him. The academy would remember him, not as the small Terran who arrived alone, but as the Terran who stood among giants and earned the respect of one of the greatest hunters in the universe. And Rian, for the first time, truly felt the meaning of being recognized as kin. The Galactic Combat Academy had never seen a human achieve what Rian had. Months of rigorous training, endless challenges, and dangerous simulations had honed him into a warrior respected by every recruit and instructor alike. Yet, the final challenge, the one that would define his legacy, was about to begin. Vorak approached him in the early morning, the first rays of the twin suns glinting off the academy towers. "Today," he said, "you do not only fight for yourself, You fight to show what a human can become. Rian tightened the straps on his armor and nodded. I am ready, sir. The final trial was set on an uncharted planet, a world no recruit had ever visited. Its terrain was harsh, jagged cliffs, deep ravines, and forests filled with predators that combined both biological and synthetic elements. The mission was simple in words, but deadly in execution. Secure the central command post and survive the attacks from the world's apex predators until extraction as the team landed. The air was thick and metallic. Rian glanced at his teammates. Drex, Lorne, Mira, and Olenand gave a calm nod. They had trained together long enough to trust each other without question. The predators of this world were unlike anything they had faced. Towering beasts with armor like hides, claws like scythes, and eyes that glowed red patrolled the valleys and forests. Many recruits would have panicked, but Rian's mind worked quickly. Stick to the shadows, he instructed. Move quietly and use their senses against them. We are not here to fight them blindly. The team followed silently, their footsteps careful on the rocky ground. Rian led them through hidden paths, using broken terrain and fallen trees as cover. Several times, they narrowly avoided patrols of predators. Moving in perfect synchronization, hours passed, and the team finally reached the base of the command post. It was a massive structure, built from alien metal that glimmered under the planet's twin suns. To reach the entrance, they had to cross a canyon bridge while predators patrolled above. Drex whispered. We cannot cross without being seen. Rian studied the movement patterns. We do not need to fight. We need timing. Wait for the moment when the patrol changes direction. Step lightly. Stay close to the wall. One by one, they moved across the narrow bridge, every muscle tensed. As they reached the other side, a massive predator lunged from the shadows. Rian reacted instantly, throwing a pulse grenade that struck the creature squarely in its chest. Sparks and fire erupted. Drex and Lorne followed with precise strikes, felling the predator before it could reach them. Inside the command post, they found the control panels they needed to secure. Rian studied the layout quickly. We have limited time. Activate the power node first. It will disable external defenses. Mira stepped forward, carefully inputting the commands while Rian kept watch. Alarms suddenly blared. Outside, dozens of predators were converging on their location, drawn by the disturbance. Olan panicked. We cannot hold them all. Rian's voice was calm but firm. We do not fight all. We fight smart. Lead them into the corridors. Use their size against them. He moved quickly, luring the first predators into narrow hallways where their massive bodies got stuck. Drex and Lorne struck with blades and energy weapons. The plan worked flawlessly. Each predator that approached became vulnerable in the tight spaces. The team moved like a single unit. Slowly, the predators fell one by one. Rian's strategy, combined with his training under Vorak, turned a battle that could have been fatal into a controlled victory. Finally, the last predator, larger than all the rest, approached the central hall. Its claws tore through metal walls, and its eyes glowed with fury. Rian faced it without fear. He remembered every lesson Vorak had taught him: patience, timing, observation, and courage. He dodged the creature's first strike, slid under its legs, and slashed at the exposed core on its back. Sparks flew. The predator roared, but did not stop. Rian ran, leading it toward a chamber filled with destabilized energy panels. He feinted, dodged, and then activated the chamber remotely. Energy surged through the room, striking the predator and immobilizing it. The team watched in awe as the massive beast collapsed. Rian was breathing heavily, his armor scorched, his body marked with cuts and bruises. Yet he stood tall. When the extraction ship arrived, the team climbed aboard, exhausted but alive. Commander Kervin and several senior instructors awaited them. They studied the data and footage with disbelief. Kervin shook his head. I have never seen such leadership, skill, and calm under pressure. The small Terran has outdone every expectation. Vorak stepped forward and placed a clawed hand on Rian's shoulder. You fought not as a Terran, not as a human, but as one of the hunters. From this moment, you are my kin. Let every recruit and warrior in this galaxy remember that. Small size does not measure strength. Heart, will, and courage do. The words echoed through the hall. Recruits from other teams watched in awe. Those who had once mocked him now bowed their heads in respect. Back on the academy grounds, the graduates were celebrated. Rian's team stood together, stronger not only from survival, but from trust in each other. The small human who had arrived alone, laughed at and doubted, now stood as a symbol of hope, strategy, and bravery. In the following weeks, Rian began training younger recruits. He shared the lessons of the apex hunt: patience, observation, protecting others, and thinking faster than danger itself. Recruits from many worlds sought his guidance. His story became legendary across the academy. Vorak continued to mentor him, but he also gave Rian independence. "Lead your own path now," Vorak said. "Teach others, protect others, and honor the hunt." Rian felt the weight of the responsibility but welcomed it. He trained tirelessly, moving from world to world with teams of diverse species. His reputation grew not because of his size, but because of his unwavering courage, intelligence, and compassion. Years later, the academy had changed. Humans were no longer considered weak or insignificant. Rian had shown that adaptability, strategy, and the will to protect could elevate even the smallest warriors to the highest ranks. Stories of his courage and leadership inspired generations. During one ceremony, as new recruits graduated, Vorak stood beside Rian. The apex hunter's golden eyes reflected pride and approval. "The small Terran," Vorak said, "has taught us all that strength is not in muscle, claws, or armor. Strength is in the mind, the heart, and the courage to stand for others." Today, this lesson will live forever in the academy. Rian looked around at the graduates, their eyes wide with admiration. He remembered the laughter, the mockery, and the doubt of his first day. He remembered the moments he had felt weak and the lessons that had shaped him. Now, he understood the meaning of kinship, courage, and legacy. He was not just a warrior. He was a symbol of hope. The academy would remember him. The galaxy would remember him. And for the small Terran who had arrived alone, laughed at, and underestimated, the journey had only just begun. The stars above shone brightly as Rian and Vorak watched together. The horizon promised new worlds, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that even the smallest among us could rise to greatness. Rian smiled. He had earned his place among giants. And he knew that the heart of a hunter was measured not by size, but by courage, will, and the strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. And in that moment, he truly understood what it meant to be recognized as kin.